How many times have you tried to change your eating or lose weight? And you make a decision and you really mean it. But the next thing you know, you reason or justify yourself out of that decision, and then you're right back where you started. So how do you overcome that voice inside? How do you make that voice listen to you instead of you always listening to it? Well, that's what we're going to talk about today with my guest, Glenn Livingston, on today's One Simple Thing podcast.
It's time to build a better business by building a better you. This is One Simple Thing.
Welcome back to the show. It's Dave Kirby here with you once again as we talk to Glenn Livingston. Today is our recap episode. Be going back and pulling in clips from the previous 4 episodes, and hopefully you'll get something out of today's show. I would certainly recommend you going back and listening to them in their entirety because you'll get a whole lot more information than what I could share with you on this show today. So go back and check them out. It's episodes 546 through 549 of the podcast, and you can find those at onesimplething.online.com. While you're there, also click on the banner ad for Glenn Livingston, and you'll be taken to his website where you can get his book called Never Binge Again. The book is free. You can also sign up for some added bonuses, including a set of food plan starter templates and about a dozen recorded coaching sessions you can listen to as well. Again, you could click on the banner ad when you go to onesimplething.online.com. So let's get at our recap here. On episode 546, we started by learning Glenn's strategy and how it starts with recognizing that voice in each of us that sabotages our efforts to change. He calls that voice, Glenn does, his pig.
We've got a lizard brain, and the lizard brain evolved before the need for love and forming a tribe and delaying impulses and delaying gratification and having aspirations and goals and self-actualizing. Before all that, in our evolutionary history, there's this part of us that looks at things in the environment and says, do I eat it? Do I kill it? Or do I mate with it? Do I eat it? Do I kill it? Or do I mate with it? And it's that primitive and that strong. And what happens when one of these toxic pleasures, like chocolate or bread or flour. And by the way, I'm not saying that chocolate is a bad thing for everyone. It happens to be kind of poisonous for me, but some people do perfectly well with it. But when your lizard brain latches on to that as if it's a matter of survival, it doesn't matter what your higher self really wants. So it doesn't matter what your best laid plans are. It doesn't matter what this does to the people you love or everything that's important to you. All that matters is the lizard brain says, I need that to survive, and that's it. I'm supposed to eat that, and that's it. And so all of the psychology, all of the, nurturing your inner wounded child, it's actually not useful at that time. What you need to do is figure out a way to dissociate from the lizard brain with a kind of disgust, a kind of feeling of disgust, so that in the moment of impulse, you have those extra seconds to make the right decision and you jump back up into your right brain. And so I call my lizard brain the pig. Some people call it the slacker. I work with women who call it their BITCH. As long as it's something that you're,
So it's just as long as it's something that repels you or makes you feel like you want to repel that voice.
Yeah, it's not an inner pet. It's not your inner wounded child. It's not something you want to love. The experience of recovering like this from eating difficulties is more like capturing and caging a rabid Doberman pinscher that's got to respect and fear you than it is nurturing a little bunny rabbit back to health.
Boy, that inner saboteur will sabotage us every time if we let it. We've got to learn to take control of it. Glenn says the first step in controlling that inner saboteur is learning to recognize it when you hear it. And on episode 547, he said the way to do that is to use what he calls food rules.
You make a rule that if 10 people were going to follow you around all day long, which won't happen, but if they did, they would agree whether you follow that rule or not. All of them would agree. So an example might be, I will always get up and walk around for 5 minutes before I go back for seconds at a restaurant, right? If there were people watching you at a restaurant, they would all agree whether you did that or not. An example of a rule that doesn't work, but which is well-intentioned, is I'll always stop eating when I'm full, and I'll never eat if I'm not hungry. The reason that doesn't work is that it's kind of ambiguously defined exactly what does it mean to be hungry, exactly what does it mean to be full. That's a guideline, and it's a good guiding principle, but it's not the kind of rule that I'm talking about that'll let you hear your pig. And the reason is, if you say, I will always get up from the table and walk around for 5 minutes before I go back for seconds at a restaurant, then the moment you hear any voice whatsoever in your head that says, gee, you don't really have to wait 5 minutes now because, Ethel is here and it's going to be embarrassing, or whatever that voice says, you know that that's coming from your inner saboteur. And I call that pig squeal. And it just makes the line crystal clear, and it allows you to recognize all of the rationalizations that really stem from your lizard brain's desire to do the thing that your best self, your best thinking said is really not in your best interest.
And that's really why rules are important, right? Because if there's any gray area at all, our inner saboteur is going to take advantage of it, and we're going to end up right back where we started. So Glenn's strategy is built around us taking responsibility for our own food decisions. And on episode 528, he said that begins with setting those rules up for ourselves and then letting those rules kind of guide us into a more comprehensive food plan.
What typically will happen with my clients is that they start with one rule like, there's a woman in one of the case examples who came to me. She was terrified of saying she'd never do something again. And then we kind of worked through her ambivalence. She said, okay, I'm never going to have popcorn again. That's my biggest problem. And she still hasn't had popcorn since she said that. But she got all excited about how this technique helped her to not have popcorn. But she said, I'm not losing any weight. I really need to lose some weight, and I still overeat on X, Y, and Z. And so at that point, you can say, well, do you want to add one more rule? Or do you want to step through and try to develop something comprehensive at this point? And that really depends upon how serious the problem is. If people feel like, they're eating just a little bit out of control and, they just want to kind of refine it around the edges, then this is the time to add one more rule. But if they really feel like, they need to make a radical change with food and they really need to see some physical results, which I tell people not to expect too quickly. It's not usually safe to lose more than a pound or two a week. Then it's a good time to make a more comprehensive plan. And that involves digging through the 4 categories we talked about: never, always, conditionals, and unrestricteds. And asking yourself, well, what rules might I need to add to protect me from other trigger foods or situations? And what do I need to add to be sure that my plan is nutritionally complete, that I'm actually getting enough calories and antioxidants and, natural foods and whatever. I refrain from telling people how to eat because I think that our inner saboteurs are really sharp at picking up any flaw in some diet guru's plan to say, well, it's not perfect because of X, Y, Z, and therefore the whole plan is off. So I really encourage people to take full responsibility for their own plan rather than asking me how to tell them what to eat. As long as it's nutritionally complete, they're getting enough calories, and if they don't know how to do that, then that's a time to consult a nutritionist or go back to a book that you really like.
So we started talking about the food rules and then led into conversation about our comprehensive food plan. And Glenn has a series of 4 buckets or categories that he puts our food choices into. On episode 549, he walked us through those 4 buckets.
Yeah, never agains. So I'll never eat popcorn again, or I will never have refined flour again, or I'll never drink alcohol again. Whatever those, if you were a traffic planner, you would call them very dangerous intersections. Whatever you really need to be protected from indefinitely. You just kind of had enough of it in your life. You need protection.
So I'm looking at those things where I just know if I even give in one time, it's kind of like an alcoholic, right? Trying to overcome alcohol. If I even have one drink, I'm going to go back, right? So These are those things that I can't allow myself to ever do again because I know if I do, it's all over.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Always is the next one.
Always are things that you always do are intended to install constructive behaviors into your world. So I always plan out my food before I go to bed. Some people like that one. I always take a deep breath before going back to set for seconds. I always drink 6 glasses of water a day. I always take my vitamins in the morning.
I always walk 20 minutes a day or whatever it is.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And the always are kind of the opposite of the nevers, right? It's like if I let up one day, I probably will go back and revert to my old ways. So I've got to commit myself to always means always.
Yeah. And we have all sorts of habits. I always brush my teeth in the morning, right? I always pee in the toilet. I don't go elsewhere. So we're entirely capable of installing behaviors that we always do, no matter what. And so adding one more is really child's play.
Yeah. The third category is unrestricted.
Well, one of the really important things about constructing a food plan is being sure that you have sufficient calories and sufficient nutrition. And so the idea of having an unrestricted category is intended to stimulate thought about where am I going to get those calories from? What am I going to eat if I'm really, really hungry? What are the things that I can do without really thinking about it? So, I can have as many unsauced whole vegetables as I want to. I can drink as much water as I want to. I can take as many showers as I want. Whatever are like free foods and free comforting behaviors that will kind of round out your plan, so you're not frightened about not getting enough nutrition.
And then the fourth category is the conditionals.
Well, so what I don't want people to do, just because they can say never and always, is use more nevers and always than they need to. And there are a lot of things which are problems in your life, but you don't necessarily have to stop them entirely. Like, I can have 8 ounces of pasta after a workout of more than an hour. I can have pretzels at Major League Baseball games. I'll only ever have pretzels at Major League Baseball games again. I can have dessert at restaurants as long as I'm eating with other people. So the way to get at that is to think of the very specific situations where you have problems with food. Sometimes it's eating in the car. Sometimes it's, in social situations, and see if there's a way that you could control that without necessarily giving up the food or behavior entirely.
It really is a pretty simple strategy for changing the way we eat. I know even this week, as I've been talking with Glenn and listening to the programs myself, I've started implementing some of the strategies, and they're working for me. I'm setting up some rules and boundaries around what I eat, and I'm starting to develop that food plan based on those. So I know it works. It's working for me right now, and it could work for you as well. Just get a copy of Glenn's book. It's called Never Binge Again. And as well as the book, you'll also get some free reader resources like food plan templates and some coaching sessions that'll walk you through the process a little bit too. So you can do all of that by going to our website, onesimplethingonline.com. Click on the banner ad, and you'll see it on the right-hand side of the page. And you can take advantage of all that good stuff that Glenn is offering you for free. Again, just click on the banner ad at onesimplethingonline.com. Thanks for listening today, you guys. I'm Dave Kirby. I'll see you next time here on the One Simple Thing podcast.